First contact surprise. Supreme Commander Zilvax stood motionless on the bridge of the Valdari warship's stone spear, his crystalline form reflecting the starlight. The alien vessel before them was unlike anything the Valdari had encountered in their centuries of space exploration. It was ungainly, practical, and thoroughly unimpressive to his silicon-based eyes. Scans confirm. Supreme Commander reported First Observer Krtal, her crystalline fingers dancing across the sensor array. The vessel is comprised primarily of metal alloys. The beings inside are carbon-based. She pronounced the last words with barely concealed disdain. The Valdari had long considered themselves the galaxy's premier civilization, evolved from silicon-based life on a high-gravity world with extreme temperature variations. They had developed bodies that were literally living crystal, capable of withstanding pressures that would crush most species and temperatures that would vaporize organic matter. Open communications, Zilvax commanded, his voice resonating through the bridge like stone against stone. Let us see these, humans. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a human female in what appeared to be a simple cloth uniform. Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Pioneer met the crystalline alien's gaze without flinching, despite his towering 3-meter height and intimidating crystalline structure. Greetings, Valdari vessel. We come in peace and seek diplomatic dialogue regarding the mining rights in this system, she said, her voice steady and professional. Zilvax's crystalline features remained impassive, but inwardly he was amused. These soft, fragile beings wished to negotiate for mining rights in one of the most hazardous systems in the sector. The star's radiation alone would kill most carbon-based life forms without extensive shielding. Your species presumes much, he responded, his translator converting his resonant tones into human speech. This system's conditions would destroy your kind. We have claimed these territories by right of survival. Captain Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes sparkled with something that Zilvax couldn't quite interpret. Perhaps we could demonstrate our capabilities before you make that judgment. Before Zilvax could respond, alarms blared across both ships. A massive solar flare, far larger than any predicted by either species scientists, erupted from the system's star. The Valdari crew braced themselves, their crystalline bodies designed to withstand such radiation. But it wasn't radiation that proved to be the immediate threat. A stream of high-velocity plasma struck a passing asteroid, shattering it into thousands of pieces. Both ships found themselves in the path of a deadly asteroid field, superheated by the solar flare. The Valdari ship's shields held firm, but they watched in fascination as the human vessel responded. Instead of retreating or hiding behind shields, the Pioneer began to move. It danced through the debris field with impossible grace, its crews making split-second decisions that seemed to defy probability. Fascinating. First Observer Krtal murmured. They're using the superheated debris to their advantage. Look. The human ship was indeed executing a complex series of maneuvers, using the momentum of smaller debris to deflect larger pieces. They had transformed a deadly hazard into a tool for survival. When a critical piece of their shielding was damaged, the humans didn't retreat. Instead, Zilvax watched in disbelief as space-suited figures emerged from the ship, working in the superheated vacuum to effect repairs. Their suits seemed impossibly fragile compared to the Valdari's natural armor, yet they moved with precise efficiency. Supreme Commander, Krtal reported, her tone carrying an unfamiliar note of respect. Their ship's hull temperature is exceeding the survival threshold for carbon-based life, yet their crews continue to function. Zilvax studied the readings, then the humans still working diligently outside their ship. How? He demanded. As if in answer, they received another transmission from Captain Chen. Her bridge was now filled with emergency lighting, and cooling vapor vented from the ceiling, but she stood as calmly as before. We've developed environmental suits that can withstand these conditions, she explained. And our crews train for exactly these scenarios. We find that preparation and adaptability are just as valuable as natural resilience. For the first time in his long life, Zilvax felt something he'd never expected: uncertainty about his species' presumed superiority. These humans weren't surviving despite their fragility. They were thriving because of their response to it. Perhaps, he said slowly, his crystalline form shifting in what the Valderi recognized as a gesture of respect, we should discuss those mining rights after all. You have demonstrated unexpected qualities. Captain Chen smiled, and Zilvax realized that the look he'd seen in her eyes earlier wasn't fear or uncertainty. It was anticipation. These humans hadn't come to challenge the Valderi's claim to the system. They'd come to prove they were worthy of sharing it. As the debris field cleared and both ships began damage assessment, Zilvax found himself wondering what other surprises these remarkable beings might have in store. The galaxy, he suspected, was about to become a much more interesting place. The challenge. 3 months after the first contact incident, the Valderi High Council chamber hummed with tense energy. Crystalline council members shifted in their mineral composite seats, creating a subtle symphony of grinding stone as they reviewed the footage before them. On the massive holo display, a human engineer worked inside an active plasma conduit, her environmental suit glowing from the intense heat. What made the footage remarkable wasn't just the dangerous conditions. It was that she was singing while she worked, her vital signs displaying remarkable stability despite the lethal environment. Impossible, growled Council Elder Extor, his crystalline form darkening with emotion. They must be using some form of advanced technology we haven't detected. High Counselor Vexera, who had witnessed the first contact incident, leaned forward. The humans have consistently demonstrated similar capabilities across multiple scenarios. Their technological level is, if anything, behind ours. What they possess is something different. Then let us test these capabilities properly, declared War Chief Kreval, rising to his full height. His battle-scarred crystalline form caught the chamber's light, casting prismatic patterns across the walls. I propose we invite them to participate in the trials of endurance. A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. The trials were sacred to the Valderi, a series of challenges designed to push even their crystalline bodies to their absolute limits. No other species had ever been deemed worthy of participating. 2 weeks later, Captain Chen stood with her chosen team at the base of Mount Pyrox, the highest peak on the Valderi homeworld. The mountain's surface temperature fluctuated between -200 and +400 degrees Celsius as the binary stars rose and set, while gravity nearly triple Earth's pulled at their bodies. War Chief Kreval approached them, his crystalline form adapted to a more intimidating configuration. The first trial is simple: reach the summit before both suns set. We Valderi can simply reconfigure our crystalline structures to climb. How will you soft beings manage? Sarah Chen smiled, a gesture that still puzzled the Valderi. We brought some friends, she said, gesturing to the equipment cases her team was unpacking. The Valderi watched in bewilderment as the humans assembled what appeared to be primitive mechanical devices, ropes, pythons, and something they called crampons. Instead of trying to match the Valderi's natural abilities, they were compensating with tools and teamwork. As the climb began, the Valderi observers expected to witness a quick failure. Instead, they found themselves fascinated. Where Valderi climbers moved independently, the humans worked as a coordinated unit. They established routes, secured lines, and communicated constantly. When one tired, another took the lead. When the temperature plummeted, they adapted their equipment and shared heat sources. Halfway up the mountain, disaster struck. A gravitational surge, common on this unstable world, caused a massive rock slide. The Valderi observers easily withstood the barrage, their crystalline bodies deflecting the stones. They expected to find the humans crushed. Instead, they witnessed something extraordinary. The human team had not only survived, but had turned the rockslide to their advantage. They used the newly created channels as climbing routes, transformed fallen boulders into shelters, and even gathered certain rocks to use as heat sinks during the temperature swings. Your kind seems to treat every disaster as an opportunity, Craval observed, joining Captain Chen during a brief rest period. She took a long drink from her water supply before responding. On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Every challenge we've faced has taught us something new. But surely there are obstacles you cannot overcome, limits you cannot surpass. Chen secured her safety line before responding. The only real limit is the one you place on yourself. We learned long ago that when you can't be stronger, you can be smarter. When you can't be faster, you can be more prepared. As the binary suns began their descent, both Valderi and human teams approached the summit. The Valderi had reached it first, but they found themselves strangely impressed by the humans' methodical approach. Where the Valderi saw their success as a validation of their natural superiority, the humans treated the climb as a learning experience, documenting conditions and strategies for future attempts. At the summit ceremony, War Chief Craval made an unprecedented gesture. He reconfigured his crystalline form to mimic the humans' climbing gear, acknowledging their innovative approach. Perhaps, he announced, true strength lies not in being impervious to challenges, but in how we choose to face them. Captain Chen nodded, her team gathering around her as the temperature began its nightly plunge toward absolute zero. We're just getting started, she said, checking her equipment. I believe the next trial involves surviving a night at these temperatures. The war chief's crystalline form flickered with what might have been amusement. These humans weren't just surviving the trials, they were teaching the Valderi new ways to think about survival itself. As the stars emerged above the punishing atmosphere, both species prepared for the next challenge, each beginning to understand that they had more to learn from each other than either had initially imagined. Crisis point. The orbital monitoring station above Valdori Prime pulsed with emergency alerts. Senior observer Xtal's crystalline form vibrated with tension as she processed the incoming data. The system's smaller sun was becoming unstable, generating electromagnetic pulses of unprecedented magnitude. All stations report critical failure imminent, she announced to the mixed crew of Valderi and human scientists. The radiation shields cannot withstand another pulse of this magnitude. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, the human lead scientist, studied the holographic projections with intense focus. The station had been a symbol of cooperation between their species, but now it faced destruction. Worse, the pulses threatened both the Valderi colony on the system's second planet and the new human settlement on its third. The Valderi ships can withstand the radiation, declared Commander Zervex. We must evacuate immediately. Your human vessels will be destroyed if they attempt rescue operations. Maya's eyes narrowed as she manipulated the holographic display. Or we could solve the problem instead of running from it. The Valderi commander's crystalline form shifted in what had become their expression of incredulity. The electromagnetic pulses will destroy any electronic equipment your kind depends on. Even your environmental systems will fail. Then we won't rely on electronics, Maya replied, pulling up schematics for something that made the Valderi observers lean forward in surprise. Within hours, human ships approached the station, but they were unlike anything the Valderi had seen before. Gone were the sleek vessels powered by fusion drives. Instead, these ships appeared to be using modified solar sails and mechanical systems that looked almost primitive. Mechanical backup systems, Maya explained as she coordinated the operation. No electronics to fail. We've been preparing for scenarios like this since our first deep space missions. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most reliable. The Valderi watched in fascination as humans in specially shielded suits began installing huge mirrors around the station. Mirrors that would redirect the deadly radiation away from both the station and the threatened colonies. It was an elegant solution that required no advanced technology, just an understanding of basic physics and the courage to implement it in lethal conditions. But the situation deteriorated faster than anyone predicted. A massive electromagnetic surge approached, far larger than the previous ones. The human workers were still exposed, racing to complete the mirror array. You must withdraw your people. Kextall insisted. No carbon-based life form can survive that level of radiation. Maya's response was cut off as the surge hit. The station's remaining electronic systems went dark, and for a terrible moment, everyone thought the humans had been vaporized. But as emergency lights flickered back on, the external cameras revealed an astonishing sight. The humans had not retreated. Instead, they had adapted. Using their suits' mechanical systems and the partially completed mirror array, they had created improvised radiation shelters. They were not just surviving. They were continuing their work. "Impossible," whispered Commander Zervex. "How are they still functioning?" One of the human workers, her voice strained but steady over the mechanical radio backup, answered, "We've got a job to do, Commander. We'll rest when it's done." Over the next 12 hours, the humans completed their work under conditions that should have killed them several times over. They lost equipment, suffered injuries, and faced setbacks that would have defeated most species. But they never stopped. The mirror array, once completed, worked better than anyone had predicted. Not only did it protect the station and colonies, but it also created an unexpected benefit. The redirected radiation could be harnessed as an energy source. In the station's main conference room, now lit by emergency lighting and heating provided by human-designed mechanical systems, Commander Zervex addressed the assembled crews. "We have long prided ourselves on our natural resilience," the commander said, their crystalline form configured in the Valdera gesture of deepest respect. "But you humans have shown us that there are many forms of strength. Your ability to adapt, to find solutions where we saw only obstacles, has protected not only your people but ours as well." Maya, exhausted but satisfied, shared a knowing look with her team. "We learned long ago that survival isn't just about being tough enough to endure. It's about being clever enough to change the rules of the game. Your people have earned more than our respect," Kextall added. "You've earned our trust. The Valderi do not say this lightly." As the crews began the work of rebuilding and improving their defenses against future solar events, both species recognized that they had reached a turning point. The Valderi's assumption of superiority had been replaced by genuine appreciation for human ingenuity, while the humans had demonstrated that their greatest strength lay not in their technology or their physical capabilities, but in their unrelenting determination to overcome any challenge. Looking out at the massive mirror array, now glinting in the light of the stabilizing sun, Maya reflected that this crisis had done more than save lives. It had forged a true partnership between two species who were finally beginning to understand each other's true strengths. Little did they know that their greatest challenge still lay ahead, one that would require all the qualities of both species to survive: the hunt. The tracking station's alarms cut through the artificial night cycle of Colony Beta, their urgent tone drawing both human and Valderi crews from their rest periods. Security Chief Elena Santos arrived at the command center to find her Valderi counterpart, Defense Leader Texril, already studying the perimeter feeds. "Sixth attack this week." Texril's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "The shadow claws are growing bolder." The holographic display showed the aftermath. Massive claw marks in reinforced walls, energy barriers shorted out, and supply caches ransacked. The shadow claws, massive predators native to this world, had previously avoided both species' settlements. Now they were hunting them. "They're learning," Elena observed, noting the systematic way the creatures had disabled the defenses. "Each attack is more sophisticated than the last." The shadow claws had proven to be unlike any predator either species had encountered. Semi-transparent, virtually immune to energy weapons, and possessed of both incredible strength and disturbing intelligence, they had quickly become a threat that neither humans nor Valderi could handle alone. "Our traditional methods are failing," Texril admitted, their crystalline structure shifting in frustration. "Even our most durable warriors cannot match their adaptive capabilities." Elena studied the attack patterns, a plan forming in her mind. "Then maybe we're approaching this wrong. We're both trying to outfight them. What if we outsmart them instead?" The next day, an unprecedented joint operation began. Human trackers worked alongside Valdari warriors, each bringing their unique perspectives to the hunt. The humans' experience with Earth's apex predators proved invaluable in understanding the Shadowclaw's behavior, while the Valdari's natural durability provided essential protection. They're pack hunters, Alina explained during a strategy session, but not like anything from Earth. Look at how they communicate. She pointed to footage showing the creatures using complex patterns of bioluminescence to coordinate their attacks. Similar to our own crystalline communications, remarked Science Officer Krivel, who had joined the operation. Perhaps we could use that. The breakthrough came when a human xenobiologist noticed something unexpected in the chemical analysis of a Shadowclaw's trace residue. The creatures weren't just hunting for food. They were desperate. Their natural prey was dying out due to subtle changes in the planet's atmosphere. They're not attacking us out of aggression, Alina realized. They're attacking us because they're starving. The joint team developed a daring plan. Using the Valdari's ability to refract light through their crystalline bodies and human expertise in behavioral modification, they began creating false bioluminescent signals. But instead of trying to drive the Shadowclaws away, they would lead them to an alternative food source. You want to save them? Texril asked, surprised. These creatures have killed our people. They're trying to survive, just like us, Alina responded. And if we can turn them from enemies into allies, we all benefit. The plan was dangerous. It required perfect coordination between human and Valdari teams. The humans would synthesize artificial prey animals based on the Shadowclaw's original food source, while the Valdari would use their crystalline properties to create complex light signals that would guide the predators to designated hunting zones. During the implementation, everything nearly fell apart. A group of young Shadowclaws, more aggressive than the others, broke from the main pack and attacked the operation team. In the chaos that followed, both species witnessed something remarkable. A human tracker named James Chen found himself cornered by two Shadowclaws. Instead of retreating, he stood his ground and began mimicking their bioluminescent patterns using a hastily modified light panel. The creatures paused, confused by this prey that spoke their language. Nearby, Valdari warrior Engstel saw what was happening. Without hesitation, they reconfigured their crystalline form to amplify and perfect the light patterns Chen was creating. The combination of human insight and Valdari capability created a communication method that actually reached the intelligent predators. They're not just hunting, Chen reported excitedly after the encounter. They're trying to tell us something. Over the next few weeks, the joint human-Valdari team refined their approach. They discovered that the Shadowclaws possessed a complex social structure and remarkable problem-solving abilities. By working together, the two spacefaring species had not only solved their predator problem, but had made first contact with a third intelligent species. Remarkable, Texril observed, watching as guided Shadowclaw packs now helped patrol the colony perimeter, using their natural abilities to detect other dangerous wildlife. We would never have conceived of turning enemies into allies this way. Alina smiled, watching human and Valdari crews working alongside their former adversaries. Sometimes the best way to survive isn't to fight harder. It's to find a way to turn survival into cooperation. The success of the Shadowclaw initiative marked a new chapter in human-Valdari relations. Both species had learned that their different approaches to challenges, human adaptability, and Valdari resilience, could create solutions neither would have found alone. But as reports came in from other colonies about new and stranger phenomena, it became clear that their partnership would soon face even greater tests. The galaxy, it seemed, had many more surprises in store for both species. Evolution of understanding. The exploration vessel Unity, a revolutionary hybrid of human and Valdari engineering, hung in orbit around XO3, a planet that challenged everything both species thought they knew about survival. Below them swirled an atmosphere that shifted between liquid and gas, gravity waves that could crush or disperse matter, and life forms that defied conventional physics. Captain Sarah Chen, now bearing scars from her years of joint missions with the Valdari, stood beside Supreme Commander Zilvax on the bridge. Their mission: to investigate signals suggesting an advanced civilization somehow thrived in this impossible environment. All our simulations suggest no known form of life should exist here, reported Science Officer Maya Rodriguez, her holographic displays showing readings that seemed to contradict each other. Even the Valdari crystalline structure would shatter under these conditions. Zilvax's form shifted in what had become his characteristic expression of intrigue. Yet something does exist here. Something sent those signals. The bridge crew, a seamless integration of humans and Valdari, worked with practiced efficiency. 3 years of joint operations had taught them to combine Valdari precision with human intuition in ways that made them far more effective than either species alone. Energy spike, called out First Observer Kurtal. Something's rising from the surface. They watched in awe as a massive form emerged from the churning atmosphere. It appeared to be a living vessel, its surface constantly shifting between states of matter, adapting moment by moment to the planet's chaotic conditions. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered, and for once, no one on the bridge disagreed. The entity approached their ship, its very presence challenging their understanding of physics. Conventional communications failed completely. The human Valdari crew faced a challenge unlike anything they'd encountered: how to communicate with a being that existed in a state they could barely comprehend. "We need to think differently," Sarah declared. "Maya, remember the Shadowclaw incident. Sometimes communication isn't about words or signals. It's about understanding fundamental needs." Working together, the human and Valdari crew developed an unprecedented approach. The Valdari used their crystalline bodies to create complex resonance patterns, while the humans contributed their expertise in pattern recognition and abstract problem-solving. They weren't trying to speak to the entity. They were trying to demonstrate understanding. Their breakthrough came when they realized the entity wasn't just a vessel or a life form. It was both, and neither. It existed in a state of constant adaptation, much like humanity's approach to survival, but with an absolute mastery of matter that exceeded even the Valdari's crystalline control. Hours turned into days as they established rudimentary communication. The entity, they learned, was part of a civilization that had evolved beyond the constraints of fixed physical forms. They had achieved what both humans and Valdari had been approaching from different directions: perfect adaptation. They're not just surviving here, Maya realized, examining the data. They created these conditions. This entire planet is their laboratory for evolution. The revelation shook both species to their core. The Valdari had prided themselves on their resilient form, humans on their adaptability. But these beings had transcended such distinctions entirely. As they worked to understand their new neighbors, an accident nearly ended the mission. A gravitational surge threatened to tear the unity apart. The entity, recognizing their danger, attempted to help, but its assistance initially made things worse. Its touch began to alter the ship's matter at the quantum level. In that moment of crisis, humans and Valdari demonstrated how far they'd come. Instead of retreating or attempting to resist the changes, they adapted. The Valdari crew members used their crystalline properties to stabilize crucial systems, while the humans rapidly reconfigured the ship's operations to work with the ongoing transformations. "Don't fight it," Sarah ordered as the ship groaned around them. "Work with it, like we learned with the Shadowclaws. Sometimes survival means becoming something new." The Unity survived, though forever change. Parts of the ship now exhibited properties of both solid matter and energy, a hybrid state that would revolutionize space travel. More importantly, they had proven themselves to their new neighbors. In the months that followed, the three species established a unique exchange of knowledge. The entity's civilization shared insights into matter and energy that transformed both human and Valdari society, while they in turn shared something the entities found fascinating: the power of distinct species working together, combining different approaches to create something greater than the sum of their parts. On the Unity's observation deck, Sarah and Zilvax watched the entity's world shimmer below them. "When we first met," Zilvax said, "we thought we knew what strength was. We were so certain of our superiority." Sarah nodded, touching the transparent hull that now rippled slightly under her fingers, partially alive. "And now we know that real strength isn't about being the toughest or the most adaptable. It's about being willing to learn, to change, to combine different kinds of strength." Perhaps Zilvax's crystalline form caught the light of the alien world, creating patterns that mimicked its surface. "That is why we found each other. Not to compete, but to evolve," Sarah finished. Together. As they prepared to return home with their discoveries, both species knew the galaxy would never look the same. They had started as rivals, became allies, and emerged as something more, pioneers of a new way of existence that combined the best of both their kinds. The Unity turned toward home, its hybrid crew no longer thinking in terms of human or Valdari, but of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. They had learned that survival wasn't just about enduring or adapting. It was about growing beyond what you thought possible. And somewhere in the swirling atmosphere below, their new allies watched, wondering what these remarkable partners would achieve next.